What's up, everybody? I'm Azon Hajavandi, joined by Corey Clark, lead senior writer for Warchant.com. And we got Austin Cox, our utility man. He does a little bit of everything. Now he's here to join us in his video debut, everybody. We're going to talk about Florida State football and the opening games and the biggest openers. But first, if you could hit that thumbs up button, we certainly would appreciate it. Maybe even subscribe to our website or hit the subscribe button here on YouTube so you get notifications whenever we drop these videos, podcasts, things of that nature. All right, Austin, this was your sort of idea, keeping us through the summer. Thank you very much. It's a really good idea. Florida State, obviously, with a huge opener this season coming up against Notre Dame at home the day before Labor Day, right? It's Labor Day, not Memorial Day. And we're going to rank the 5 best openers, like in terms of like hype and the outcome, obviously. We're not going to go through all of them, but you're the author of this list, and you had us kind of approve it. We like it a lot. Why don't you start us off, Austin? What's your personal favorite opener for Florida State football?
Well, my favorite was 2016 Ole Miss. I had that definitely in the top 5. I thought that was just, that's one of the better comebacks in Florida State history. With the way they started, Ole Miss kind of came out on fire in that game. Looking back on it, it really wasn't just the Florida State defense struggling as much as it was Ole Miss had a ton of talent. Looking back, they had Evan Ingram, and I don't think DK Metcalf even got on the field a little bit there, and they had AJ Brown. They were loaded, but they just shot out to that. It was 21-3 early, and then it was 28-6 at one point. And really, the key point of the game was when Florida State drove down at the end, and Francois threw a touchdown at the end of the first half to kind of give them a little bit of momentum going into the first half or going into the second half. And then, of course, they just, the third quarter of that game is probably one of the best individual quarters Florida State's ever played, if you factor in both sides of the ball. DeMarcus Walker forcing 2 turnovers. And, the offense really clicked, too. The offense just caught fire once the defense started turning the ball over. Bobo Wilson, Kermit Whitfield making plays. Kermit Whitfield took the reverse to go. That's one of my kind of favorite plays. It's not really a huge play in Florida State history, but Kermit Whitfield taking the reverse down the left goal line to take the lead 29-28. It was just a game you started out, you really didn't think Florida State had any shot to win the way it started. And, they end up kind of winning comfortably. What were your thoughts on that game, though, Corey?
Well, yeah, don't forget the great Ricky Aguayo with a school record 6 field goals and the ice in his veins that he let us know all about during that game. Yeah, I just thought Florida State looked completely unprepared, not to be all cynical and negative. Florida State looked all very unprepared defensively. Chad Kelly did whatever he wanted in that first half. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous there were dudes running wide open literally on every play. And then, that second half, it really started with DeMarcus Walker. They moved him inside on passing downs, and he became a defensive tackle, and they could not block him. He wrecked Ole Miss's offense. I think Ole Miss scored once in the second half, right? And that was it. And other than that was like a 3-play drive. But other than that, DeMarcus Walker wrecked everything. I don't know. I guess you give it to Francois since he threw for over 400 yards. Dalvin had a pretty nice game, although he was a little banged up. But DeMarcus Walker, you look at those numbers, 4.5 sacks. It's nuts. That's just crazy. I don't think Florida State's had 4.5 sacks since, period, by all players combined. So that was really an all-time game for him, and that's what I'll kind of always remember. Number one, the way that Francois still kept his poise. But then the number 2, and really probably a bigger one for me, is that was the start of a great season for DeMarcus Walker, and he was just unblockable in the second half, and he really keyed that comeback.
Yeah, I was there for that game. That was madness. Ole Miss fans had their pom-poms and everything.
Yeah.
And, they were riding high, and then DeMarcus Walker changed everything in the second half. It was quite nice. Austin, you're saying?
Oh yeah, one other thing I was going to add was just the offense got set up a lot with turnovers, but I thought that was one of the better games Jimbo ever had play calling. I thought it was play calling. Going back and watching it, some of the plays they called were just wide open.
Good. Yeah, I think I don't know what they rushed for. I think I saw that Dalvin had 90 yards rushing, but to throw for over 400 and to run, I assume, for 150 or close to it, that's the balance that he always wanted. And, they didn't have a ton of balance. It didn't seem like that year. But when you run for 160, and, I mean, they put up 600 yards of offense. That was look at Francois with 60 yards. That might have been his career high. And then you had 3 guys with over 6 catches, 4 with over 5. I didn't realize Dalvin had 100 yards receiving too. All right, that dude was pretty good. So he had 192 total yards in that game, and I thought it was kind of a down Dalvin game. So that shows you what Dalvin Cook was. But yeah, an all-time great comeback. I would say, other than the Florida game, the choke at Doak, that's probably the best comeback of my lifetime for a Florida State football team. And it was on a huge stage, and they got down 28-6 and came back.
Yeah, I think with Dalvin, it's because obviously the first half everybody struggled on offense, and then the second half. I think it was the second half when he had the wheel route wide open. He just fumbled it, like just a ghost, knocked the ball loose out of his hands.
It was either the first or the second half.
Yeah,
I think that was.
I can't quite remember. Okay,
it slowed him down. So, Corey, now as we pivot to you again, Austin and Ira and Gene and everybody kind of had a little bit of input on this list, but ultimately Austin kind of made the calls on these. Again, we're talking about openers in terms of the hype that went into it, and then obviously how the game worked out. This one is. I didn't think there was a lot of hype going into this game, but there's really no arguing just how awesome it was to enjoy this one. You were up there to enjoy this one. Talk to us about what your favorite opener was for Florida State.
Yeah, and that was the Monday night against Pitt, at Pitt. You guys might remember it, maybe. You might remember a debut that a quarterback had. But what was interesting about that was the hype that surrounded that game was all about Jameis Winston. It wasn't like, oh, man, Florida State and Pitt are renewing rivalries for the first time in 31 years or whatever. It wasn't that, revenge for Marino. And nobody really cared that it was Pitt's first ACC game. Who gives a flip, man? It's Pitt. Nobody was, this is unbelievable. But it was a Monday night game, and it was, so the whole nation's watching, and all the hype, all the attention was on Florida State's next quarterback. How good is this kid? We've heard a lot about him. How good is he? And he went out and had arguably the best game a Florida State quarterback has ever had. He threw 2 incompletions, and one of those was actually a catch by Kenny Shaw that they ruled him out of bounds. It was an unbelievable display. And when you talk about look at Jacob Coker with a better QB rating.
QBR better than Jameis. I don't want to ever hear anybody mention QBR.
I feel like when those are the numbers for a QB, when your formula spits that out,
man,
you might want to go to a different formula. I mean, one guy's 25 and 27 for 4 touchdowns. Anyway, so what that game represented was the birth of an all-time great football team. We didn't know it at the time. In fact, Pitt went down and scored the first time they got the ball.
They did.
And I think went down and kicked a field goal their second possession, or at least drove down. But it didn't matter because Jameis Winston was incredible. And the whole offense was incredible. And then the defense took over. And what I thought was interesting about that game, and I know we won't talk about it too much, but number one, they scored 28 in the first half. It was over at halftime. But there was a moment in that game where I think Florida State was up 21-10, and Pitt had the ball on their own side of the field with about a minute and a half left. And Pitt was maybe going to try to get a first down or two to see if they wanted to go for a score. If not, they were going to go to the half. Any time that Jimbo Fisher had ever coached a football game at Florida State. So 2 minutes left. In that situation, he kind of played tentative or hesitant and wouldn't call a timeout, wanted to see what the offense did, didn't want to give them too much time. If they're going to run the clock out, fine. I'm not going to help them score on my defense. I'll let them run the clock out. No, he bangs the timeout on 2nd and 7. The very next play, Terrence Brooks intercepts Tom Savage, and they go down the field. I think Rashad Green had 100 yards receiving in that quarter. And they go down and score to put the game away. I think he maybe hit O'Leary. No, whatever he did. He made a great – Jameis was incredible the whole game. But that drive, to me, signified that Jimbo was coaching this team differently because he knew what he had. After a quarter and a half of football, he started coaching differently than he ever had, and that was because of what Jameis Winston did. He was best under the brightest lights, and that was the birth of a Heisman Trophy campaign and the birth of a national championship team. And I would think for most Florida State fans, it's got to be up there as far as their favorite season openers of all time.
I was in a Hooters in Jackson, Mississippi, watching with my Texas buddy, and he's like, well, I think you guys got the quarterback thing figured out. Good luck this season.
I mean, it was unbelievable. Like, E.J. Manuel was good. Christian Ponder, they were good college quarterbacks. It didn't look anything like that. Like, Jameis is pulling it out of Freeman's belly and rolling to the right, and then hit Kenny Shaw with an 18-yard pass, just things you had never seen. And you knew then, okay, yeah, this is going to be an all-time different guy. And he ran for a touchdown too. So in his first game, he accounted for five touchdowns and no turnovers.
Good times. All right. Well, hopefully the opener for this season can maybe fall somewhere between one of the greatest comebacks in Florida State history and an opening win that set the stage for a absolute epic year for Florida State football. We surely hope so, and hope that you folks continue to watch us over on Warchant TV here on YouTube, and check out the full story over at warchant.com. It's linked in the description below. The top 5 openers for Florida State. We won't spoil all of them, but you got 2 of them, 2016 Ole Miss and 2013 Pitt. Gentlemen, thank you. Austin, welcome to the Terror Dome, buddy. Good job.
Great job,
sir.
Austin.
Glad to be here. Thank you all.